Alright, second time doing a commentary, and it's going to be a rather long one, and this is going to be unscripted, because God forbid, there's a lot I have to say about this game. So, alright, like I tried to cover a little bit in yesterday's video regarding the pseudo-Mirai fight against Colonel Andy, there's a lot I have to say about this game. So, a little bit of background regarding my history with this game. What mission? Sure, why not? So,
HQ, 2 orbital elevator defense command.
To sum it up, Acts 1 and 2 for this game were ported over to the console, to the PlayStation 4, a little under a year ago. About 2 months after this game originally came out back in May. But the complete edition with all 3 acts and the fully complete story finally came out in the complete edition. And the last 2 acts of the game came out literally just last month on the 30th. Or was it August? I'm not 100% sure. Either way, I played this game.
Aren't we supposed to be an ace squadron?
Back when it first came out for the PlayStation 4 in the first 2 acts, and I absolutely adored it. It was an indie game, and it was rather cheaply made Ace Combat and Armored Core crossover, I would say. A lot of merging of elements between the 2 games, but basically, I liked pretty much every element about it. However, after I completed the first 2 acts, it left on an incredibly large cliffhanger, and as a result, after that, I ended up losing my interest in the game overall, because it was just taking so long for the game to really come out fully complete. And by the time it finally did, I didn't even notice that it came out complete, and I wasn't even considering getting the last 2 acts of the game. But I finally did, and safe to say, my thoughts on it overall is, not that bad. So, I'm going to try to break this down into multiple parts, as jumbled as it may be. So, first and foremost, the gameplay. Gameplay itself is absolutely amazing all in all. There are basically 0 filler missions, and even some of the ones are few and far between, and they involve missions like this where it's just all-out chaos. But not chaos in the way that it's jumbled and it's a mess and it's just too many things going on at once, but rather it's controlled. You know exactly where enemies are going to spawn, what you're going to be fighting, and what you've got to do. In essence, kind of like the controlled chaos of like Kimona or B7R in Ace Combat 4 and 0. And speaking of Ace Combat, I'm going to be talking a little bit about that later. So, the gameplay itself is very good. It's very all-out, very open. It's actually surprisingly non-linear for such a mission design. You can go... Most missions comprise of basically the same, as unfortunate or fortunate as that may be. It's basically just a bunch of enemies are over here, go in a specific manner, and just kill shit. Or maybe defend a city, or defend a space elevator like I'm doing here. Oh yeah, space elevator. Bear in mind, again, game came out before Ace Combat 7. How neat. So, gameplay itself is obviously very good, although I'm pretty sure you'd be able to judge for yourself depending on how I'm doing right here. Although this is one of the earlier missions in the game. You get this at Act 2. Gameplay is divided relatively normally when it comes to your controls, that being you have your missiles, your guns, and whatever other special weapons that your mech may have. Other mechs have specific abilities like this particular one, which can go into a jet at any point, and it carries a light blade. If you've played Armored Core, you're well aware with these kinds of systems. Now, unfortunately, despite the massive variety of mechs within this game, well, I shouldn't say massive, there's like at least 20, and the amount of weaponry that you get, you unfortunately can't select your mech, even if you do it in free mission mode. Now, there are some annoying things regarding the gameplay of this game, such as the altitude restriction. which if you breach that, you will instantly die and just fail the mission, and it's not very clear about it either, which can be incredibly aggravating. However, all in all, the gameplay can get rather repetitive on occasion. However, it does constantly throw enemies at you, and it's not very restrictive. And missions can vary from being relatively short to being decently long, but never too long, and they never overstay their welcome, I would say. So all in all, gameplay is pretty great. The game also looks pretty fantastic, and all the models are rendered excellently. Now, with gameplay out of the way, we have to go over some other things. The length of the game is actually pretty short overall. Like, I'd say like a 7, maybe 8-hour campaign. Like, at the absolute longest. Faster if you're really starting to rush through it, but I tend not to do that. I tend to, like, take my time. Sometimes replay missions and get a higher rank value. I'm doing this one on hard, as you may have already seen, but regardless, after that, there really isn't that much content with this game. Once you beat the game, you can go into the Warframe mission mode and unlock more mechs. But they're nothing too spectacular after you've really beaten the game, because by then, you've already unlocked, like, the top-tier mechs of this game. There also isn't that much incentive to really, like, go in and grab higher-level mechs, because, funnily enough, you actually get one of the stronger mechs in the game very early on. And there's just not that much incentive to, like, keep going and, like, go into a hangar and get some new ships, because every ship is kind of just handed to you, depending on what missions you beat and how well you beat them. And even then, the mech for you is always selected for you. You can never really choose by yourself, which is very annoying, but eh. So yeah, that's the basic stuff about the gameplay that I want to get out of the way. There are a couple minor annoyances every now and then. There is one mission that's very similar to Final Option and just how slow pace it is, and the fact that it's very story driven, but once you get the story and are forced to go through it, it's very annoying. I'd even put it below Final Option how much I dislike it, but at least it's not as long. Now, of course, gameplay's out of the way, we go on to probably the second most important thing, the story. This game, I'm not going to dilly-dally. This game rips off a ton, and I mean a ton, of elements from Ace Combat 5. I don't mean inspired by, I mean straight up ripped off. And I'm probably going to be doing a playthrough of this game at some point, so you're going to see it. But even then, you can see the Ace Combat references at the very beginning of this mission. I mean, for God's sakes, you have Mobius, a character from Ace Combat 4, being referenced here. Reyna and Nemo, 2 characters from Ace Combat 3 being referenced, etc. And of course, there's the space elevator, which pretty sure this was inspired by the Ace Combat 7 teaser, now that I think about it, which came out back in 2015. So, yeah. But either way, while it does rip off quite a lot from Ace Combat 5, it's still ripping off like one of the better Ace Combat games in terms of story, and arguably the best one in terms of story. So even then, it's still relatively enjoyable for the most part. Now granted, there's a lot of bad dialogue within this game, and the voice acting is... the voice acting can be really cringeworthy at certain moments. In fact, with the exception of a couple of characters, I'd say the voice acting overall is actually really, really bad. To the point of, like, early PlayStation Ace Combat levels. Early PlayStation 1, even. But regardless, the most important thing to a story, in my opinion, isn't the storyline itself, but the characters. The characters themselves in this game are an acquired taste, I should say. A lot of them do follow certain well-known anime tropes, like, say, the honorable bad guy, like Yellow 13, or even like the younger child soldier, like Mirai, which is one of the main characters of this game. Oh yes, may I actually mention this? This game has an actual speaking main character, and not just one, but 3, that you actually rotate between. Now, you do play as a silent protagonist every now and then, like Skull 1, which I am doing here, or Akula 3. Hey, another Ace Combat reference right there. That you play on the UCN side. But like I mentioned, this game has multiple protagonists, and you see different sides of the war. You actually rotate between the two sides and see them from two different perspectives. Not just both sides, but both characters' perspectives as well. The characters in this game, well, you either like them or you're indifferent to them. There aren't really any characters in this game that I can say that I absolutely hate, outside of the ones that I'm supposed to. But of course, no spoilers for that one, for what I'm about to say on that either. Sorry if my commentary is a little bit jumbled. I'm trying to focus here. This is my first time doing this on hard, and I can say this is no pushover for a mission. You also do get a rather detailed cockpit view with each one of your mechs, which I also find rather nice, but that's besides the point. Either way, the game is a little short, but again, this game is in full only $20, and that's the initial sale price, unlike the $60 games that came out today. So an initial price of $20, which is bound to go down someday, is really, really good, especially for a game of this price, and for a game that looks this gorgeous. This game runs on Unreal 4, which is the same engine that Ace Combat 7 runs on. And yet the frame rate is so much better. The draw distance is extremely good. All in all, they did a pretty fantastic job rendering this game. And with all the details that they put within this game, it is very, very good. So the gameplay, in and of itself, is already worth the only $20 you need to spend. The story itself rips off Ace Combat 5, but hey, if you're gonna rip off something, at least rip off from the best. But there's not a lot of original things within this game, and if you're familiar with Ace Combat 5, you can predict a lot of things that happen within this game. If you're familiar with the other Ace Combat games, like I am, to a very high degree, you can predict almost everything that goes on before it even happens, and I even predicted a good portion of the plot by Mission 1. So, yeah, this game can be relatively predictable in terms of plot if you're familiar with Ace Combat, which most people who play this game are going to be, to just how many elements it takes from it. Even the developers of this game, in communication, completely stress just how much they love Ace Combat and how much they want to, like, send a love letter to the series, which, you know, I can't ever fault someone for that, no matter what they do or how good their execution is. Which I can say the execution of this game is pretty decent overall. Now, like I was going back on the characters, I got off topic, my fault. But the characters of this game, it is kind of hurt by their overall bad voice acting. However, I can safely say that none of the characters have really gotten on my nerves at any point. Some of them I just genuinely didn't care for. Others have moments of character development and growth, but some are just very rushed. I would say that the only character that's solidly, like, grown and developed is Mirai, who I actually played as in my previous video. For now, I'm just playing Ball Woman. Unfortunately, some of the other characters don't receive anywhere near as much development or growth. They don't change very much. And there is another character that's kind of Mirai's counterpart that also changes throughout the story, but her development is extremely rushed. And just kind of out of nowhere. But she's not annoying as a character. But of course, I'll get to her in my playthrough of this game. Which, who knows when I'll do that. Who knows, maybe I'll actually start it later on tonight. But all in all, my overall review of this game is, if you like Ace Combat and you don't mind playing as mechs instead of aircraft, this is a must-get for a game. It's only $20 frickin'. That's the initial sale price, and it's bound to get cheaper as time goes on. Oh right, soundtrack. Music is actually very good in this game, and it's quite varied as well. There aren't as many rock and roll tracks as I would like, but all the tracks, all in all, are pretty damn good. Sound design and draw distance bugs can get rather annoying at times, but they're not deal breakers for me, although they can be deal breakers for some people that I know.
Ladies,
So, again, you like Ace Combat, you want to try out Mech Combat, get this game. It's $20. Even if you hate the story and hate the characters, but you would enjoy the gameplay, that in and of itself would make it worth it. It's a decently long game. I'd say actually longer than Ace Combat 4 and 0. And the gameplay, in my opinion, is very good, with the exception of a couple missions. So, if you're interested in just gameplay alone, give it a try. If you want to see where a story like this will actually go, again, give it a try. The only real recommendations that I can give is that, well, prepare yourself for a lot of cheesiness. Of course, if you're used to even if you're used to Ace Combat, the voice acting is pretty bad. Some of the dialogue is extremely cringeworthy. But all in all, for me at least, gameplay was great. Storyline is pretty decent. Characters are pretty decent. Yuliana is awesome, by the way. Who's currently the character that I am playing. But the things that this game does differently compared to Ace Combat, like having an actual speaking main character that the plot can revolve around, as opposed to a fucking silent protagonist who gets jailed and doesn't defend himself in court, which makes absolutely zero sense. Smaller things like actually including a main character are things that I wish the Ace Combat series would actually take a stride in, or actually take a step in. Even small things like giving an actual main character, although I shouldn't say that is small, are things that I wish the Ace Combat series would give a try. An indie game did this, and it actually ended up succeeding. The sales for this game were extremely well, and they'd already prepared a sequel the moment they sold this game after a couple months, and they realized, holy shit, this game is selling overwhelmingly well. This game sold over 12 times its initial budget. Think about that. So, like I said, you want to support games like this, you want to show Namco that change in the Ace Combat formula, like giving a main character, can be done well and can work. Support this game. Really, support this game. This is a very good game, and it's only $20, like I said. I can't stress this enough. A $20 game, even a decent game, like a 6 or a 5 out of 10, is a pretty reasonable price for $20. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all for me. Want to look up more? There are plenty of channels that have gone over the better reviews of this game than I have. Phantom in particular has a full playthrough of this game that I highly recommend watching. Although it's not as refined because the PC version actually looks a lot worse than the one on PlayStation 4 because it's using its own engine as opposed to an Unreal engine. But regardless, give the game a try. Just do it. It's only $20. If you're interested in Ace Combat in any way, do it. That's all I have to say. Take care, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, Killer, who's probably the only person viewing this. Peace out.